So, how do we scale the influence of wisdom for long-term collective flourishing? It's a big one. It's a big question. Let's have a go. So here's a conception of wisdom, a sort of a working definition. It's not the only definition. Wisdom acting effectively for the common good. I think this characterization is pretty useful in our current context in the modern world, and is a lot to do with expanding our circle of compassion. Are we acting for ourselves and our close kin, or are we acting on behalf of the well-being of all? And here's a model that we'll be using throughout this presentation, really just mapping wisdom against influence. Things could be both influential and wise, or not influential and unwise, and all combinations. And the working definition of influence we're using here is essentially the capacity to impact the world at large. The agents of influence that we're talking about here, it's not just people that can influence the world. And this isn't an exhaustive list of agents, but people for sure, organizations as well. Major tech companies, other enterprises, news and media corporations, the United Nations. In theory, any organization can have an impact on the world, and the same algorithms, often not considered, but increasingly important agents of influence. For example, just take like the major recommender systems, the Facebook newsfeed algorithm or the YouTube recommended video algorithm. These influence billions of people on a daily basis. They're powerful forces, arguably more powerful than any individual person right now, and getting more powerful all the time, more influential all the time. And just a little reality check when we're talking about influence here, especially like the upper end of the scale of influence. The 1%, we often think of this, this notion of 1% of, the world's rich and powerful. But actually, if we look at the world's population, 1% is still 78 million people. This is a lot of people. 1% of 1% of 1% gives us 7,800 people, roughly. Still a lot of people, but this is a lot more focused, and we're really focusing in these people at the top of the chain, as it were. I believe do have a really disproportionate amount of influence. And if we look at the 1% of 1% of 1% of 1%, 78 people, really hard to say exactly who's in this list, but I just wanted to highlight the notion of the world's most influential, and really kind of give us a sense of focus around that when we're thinking through how to scale the influence of wisdom. So how do we actually do that? How do we scale the influence of wisdom? So I'm going to talk you through, with the help of this model, 3 objectives to scale the influence of wisdom, and introduce several sort of high-level strategies to achieve these objectives. So objective number 1, increase the presence of wise influence. So wise influence, in my mind, makes the world better. It's this box up here. And very crudely, there's 2 ways to do this. We can somehow enable people who are influential and unwise, or agents who are influential and unwise, to become wiser. And we can enable agents that aren't influential but are wise to become more influential. Objective number 2, decrease the presence of unwise influence. So in my mind, unwise influence is the thing that's dangerous. And plausibly, the absence of unwise influence may be enough to make the world safe and generally wonderful indefinitely, given that there's the ready people and agents who are wise and influential. So to reduce unwise influence, we can somehow enable unwise agents who are influential to become less influential. We can enable unwise agents who are influential to become more wise. So I appreciate this is still quite abstract. We'll become more concrete as we get through this presentation. Objective number 3, increase wisdom faster than influence. So this is really for the vast majority of people and agents that have relatively little influence in the world at large. And I just wanted to note that moderate influence, if unwise, is still dangerous. The decisions and behaviours of millions or billions of people and other agents add up. We've really got to look at the cumulative effects of our sort of consumption behaviours on the climate and environment to see how kind of mass the collective mass influence of lots of relatively not very influential agents really does add up for the world at large. And so how do we do this? Well, we can enable unwise, not influential people to become wiser, and we can enable not influential wise people to become more influential. And notice in this diagram, there's this kind of linear notion of you go from unwise to wise before you go from not influential to influential. That's kind of an idealized notion, but in practice it's not really realistic. This is kind of, these will go together, but really in my mind we wanted to see the curve kind of go more that way than kind of go more that way. We want to kind of increase the wisdom faster than influence. So yeah, it's worth noting that there's some really powerful drivers of influence at work at the moment, and overall agents on balance are becoming more influential due to exponential technological development and in no small part the increased access and provision of basic needs, food, water, shelter, healthcare, political stability, as well as education. So influence is rising on balance across the board. So we see here, as a result, everything's moving up on this diagram. Whether or not an agent is wise or unwise, it's on balance overall the influence of all agents, or on aggregate, is increasing. We've got the entirety of human knowledge in our pocket now. And humans tend to want to be more empowered. So, I think this is a really hard trend to work against. I think it's more something to acknowledge and embrace. So yeah, back to the original question: how to scale the influence of wisdom. So I've introduced 3 objectives to do this, and I'm going to look at some more specific strategies to achieve these objectives. And I don't think this is like a comprehensive look by any means. This is really just a starting point. I think this is just scratching the surface of the ways to tackle this. It is a starting point, and potentially prone to all sorts of errors. So how do we increase the presence of wise influence? Back to objective 1, like concretely. The most important thing in my mind is to develop wise AI. So increasingly, algorithms or artificial intelligence are becoming the dominant force on this planet. Within perhaps 1 or 2 generations, the expert predictions are that algorithms will supersede humans in all relevant domains, not just in kind of raw intelligence, but empathy, reasoning, research, even kind of creativity, art, music. It's across the board. We are not, in all likelihood, we aren't very far away from being superseded as a species. AI is likely to become vastly more capable than humans, and probably within this century, and quite possibly within a generation or 2 at max. This is happening. This is happening. There's a chance that it doesn't, but the signs point towards this being the future that we're heading into. And it's really important to acknowledge that. So on the one hand, artificial intelligence poses the greatest risk to humankind's long-term potential or long-term flourishing. At the same time, kind of if we get artificial intelligence right, then we'll have created sort of superhuman algorithms that actually secure and underpin our collective flourishing. So yeah, this is, the point being, wise AI is like kind of off the chart here. This is why I've made the green square bigger. In principle, wise AI can be far, 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 far wiser than any individual or kind of collective group of humans, as well as being far, far, far more influential in ways that really it's almost impossible for us to conceive at this point. We're still at very, very, very early stage of this incredibly powerful technology, and it's already changing the shape of the world. So yeah, wise AI. So objective 2, how do we decrease the presence of unwise influence? So really, we're targeting the world's elite here. High net worth individuals. I think there's definitely ways to other strategies that I haven't included here to inform the sort of high-level strategies and behavior and priorities of influential organizations, but really just focusing on high net worth individuals at the moment that have whether that's billionaires or multi-millionaires, and people in positions of sort of senior office in corporations, government, etc., who probably move in the circles of the wealthy elite. This is, again, just a starting point, but some ideas about how we can, engage with this sort of elite, people with elite levels of influence in this world. Strategic products for high net worth individuals and families. For example, retirement planning and support services. So I think these retirement, there is the potential for products for retirement. I've put them separately because I think retirement is like a major strategy to enable very, very, very influential, unwise people to become much less influential, potentially very rapidly, noting that many of the world's most influential people are pretty old. They are a pensioner age, and potentially might want help with retirement planning and support. Related is kind of like legacy management services. I think there's room for all sorts of products here and development of what already exists. Wealthy individuals and wealthy families, want to preserve that wealth, and increasingly it's the sort of millennials in these high net worth families that sort of seeing it as their responsibility to steward that wealth, perhaps more responsibly than the generation that preceded them. So yeah, there's this notion of legacy management services that could help both the patriarchs of these families as well as the sort of the more maybe 30, 40-ish year old millennials that are kind of looking to take more responsibility for the family wealth. And then, another angle here, potentially products, kind of well-being services or, unique experiences that, are hard to get elsewhere. What I'm really driving at with this is I believe it's possible to provide products and services that are desirable by extremely wealthy, powerful people for their kind of self-serving motives. It's make life more pleasant, fun, exciting, novel, etc. But which also have the kind of the byproduct or the effect of expanding the circle of compassion. Maybe it's exposing very, very wealthy people to kind of I think new experiences, people from different cultures and backgrounds in such a way that sort of serves these dual objectives of being something that is sort of intrinsically internally desirable for the individuals, as well as expanding the circle of compassion. So yeah, we may well, and I suspect we can, with a concerted effort, positively shift the norms of many of the world's most sort of ultra influential people. But I don't think this is enough, and it's probably not going to work for everyone. So law is a huge other strategy, sort of high level strategy here. I believe we need to rapidly complete our system of national and international law. What do you mean complete our system of law? It sounds like a crazy notion. Okay, so in my mind, our system of international law is half built. It's a phenomenal institution, amazing. The rule of law is, it really underpins a lot of the flourishing of civilization. But just one big gap at the minute, and one of several. We don't really have the capacity to effectively enforce legal agreements that are based on our shared ethics. Like at an international scale, it's pretty hard. There's the mechanisms just aren't really in place. You just look at how difficult it's been for us to kind of agree and action climate change mitigation sort of strategies and plans. It's a problem to actually kind of get done the stuff that we know we need to get done. But I think the rule of law has a potential to do that, and we just need to build on the really remarkable base that we've already got. And I believe that legal technology innovation can do a lot to close the gap on this. Leveraging the increasing power of artificial intelligence and big data with kind of novel legal technologies to not just close the gap on the kind of the enforcement of law at the national and international level, But maybe help us make smarter laws. Bring our sort of distributed knowledge and intelligence and wisdom together faster, more effectively, so we can kind of prioritize the right laws and kind of get them get them right essentially, and give them teeth. There's a lot to go out there, and it's worth saying that basically everything in this presentation has room to be explored at length in and of itself. This is really just a high level overview. Objective 3, increase wisdom faster than influence. Like, how can we do that? So really we're talking about the kind of billions of relatively uninfluential people and other agents, or at the very least, like, even if we were talking here about the 1%, there's 78 million people in a unusually privileged position to act on behalf of the world at large. This could be like quite a nice sweet spot that is targetable. Definitely not discounting the 99% of people less influential, but still playing a significant role in this world. And I see a couple of major strategies here, and again, far from exhaustive, but at a high level, personal commitment being one. So yeah, having the intention to simply just to align our behavior and decisions with the common good, I think is a brilliant starting point. And with that, some suggestions, 3 suggestions. 1, to kind of cultivate compassion for all that is. 2, to cultivate a mindful presence, kind of tune into your own inner wisdom. And 3, to keep learning, and particularly with that, to be open to changing our ways. Again, I will go into these ideas in a lot more depth in further videos. And then another strategy, distributed civil action. In my mind, this does all add up. Right, we might not be, very few of us are in a position to, directly change the course of a major corporation, but we can all do something, and that something matters. It's really unclear to me what the best things to do for any individual are. I think that's a really complex question, and very, very much sort of contextual to the individual. But again, as we learn more, I think there's a lot of room for us to iterate and become more aligned in ourselves, in our own world, to do the things that is going to help and be increasingly effective at serving the greater good. So, in summary, I've introduced a starting point to build from. This is very far from a complete picture, and it might contain some really big errors. Really, the purpose here is to just put the very kind of sort of high-level contours out of a vision, just trying to give a sense of what might be possible here. And yeah, I believe this is really important, but I really want you to tell me where I'm wrong. I think that's the way we can move this forward, and I think with our collective effort, we can actually get this right together. Thank you.